Speaker.
I call Ron Mark.
Good afternoon, Mr Speaker, and I rise on behalf of New Zealand First to take this call. Very pleased to do so. It's an interesting thing when you stand up and talk to a bill that enjoys such a high degree of support across the House, and well, actually unanimous support across the House. And when one listens to the speeches that have been made and tries to make sure that one's desk lid will close, it's sometimes a bit of a challenge to find what contribution you might make that is a little different from all the other contributions that have been made. And in fact, looking back, Mr Speaker, over the course of the progress of this bill through the House and the time that I've been back here with the 51st Parliament, I think we've all pretty much recognised the same reasons as to why this legislation needs to proceed, the importance of it, and we've talked, I guess, somewhat affectionately, particularly those who are university students who, over their time, spend a little time socialising, conversing in places like Ducks Deluxe, and which is one of the places within the precinct that is affected. I'm going to start, Mr. Speaker, by doing something a little different, I guess. The reason that we're able to stand and support this piece of legislation is because, one, the Minister has quite rightly brought it before us and brought it before the committee in good form. Two, I think that it's the tone and the flavour of the Select Committee. I'm very aware that this piece of legislation came in the 50th Parliament, and in that time I think there were people on the committee, and you might have to help me out over that side, but I remember coming to the House as a mayor to look at and to watch proceedings around the local government amendment bill that went through at the time. I do remember now Minister Nicky Wagner being on that committee. I do remember Maggie Barry being on that committee. I do remember Nick Smith being on that committee. And I know there were others, and I apologise, I can't remember who they all were right now. But this committee is a very good committee, Mr Speaker, and it might seem a little unusual for an opposition MP to stand up and to compliment government MPs. But this is a very good committee. It's very well chaired by Scott Simpson. We've got a very able, and I see in the future, a very strong Cabinet Minister, along with Scott Simpson and Todd Mueller as a Deputy Chair. And I think it's the way in which people manage committees, the collegiality that you enjoy that actually helps people break through some things that might actually appear as political barriers for A, the sake of politics, or B, barriers where people do not want to move across because they don't see value, they don't share the view, they don't share the philosophy. So I do want to pay my respects to Scott Simpson, Matt Ducey, good Rangiora man, looking after my previous hometown down there and my family who live down there. Very well, Matt. Good on you. Paul Foster-Bell, who enjoys something in common with me in that he has been to Oman. And I'm enjoying having that time with him on the committee. Julianne Genter, who's in there. Joanne Hayes. Now, Joanne's a Wairarapa girl. So, of course, we would hear a lot of common sense and good contributions out of Joanne, wouldn't we? Two, Korako. Well, he's whanaunga down there, so likewise, Mr Speaker, I always expected good sound logic and good reasoning and collegiality and good performance from two, as we've seen. Eugenie Sage, Sir William Seal, all people who are very experienced in local government, and that's what makes bills like local government bills easy to move through at times, Mr Speaker. We are blessed in this committee of having a good number of people on the committee who have strong local government experience and can see straight to the core of legislation such as this, beyond what appears on the paper. They are able to understand the background and the depth and the effect it has on the communities because they have served those communities in a local government capacity. And of course, Dr. Megan Woods, who continues to impress me each time I go into that committee. So having shared some compliments across that, I think we also need to recognise the former board who, like Eugenie Sage from the Green Party has said, did a sterling job. Unlike some other people that we probably could talk about in Christchurch who did not ensure their facilities maybe in the same way that this trust did. And it is from that platform that we're able to proceed, or they are now able with the new trust to be able to proceed forward and do the work that has to be completed. I want to congratulate this board, particularly Jean Crawford, in the way in which she chairs. I also want to, again, reiterate the importance of the clause that deals with the trust vacancies and how people are appointed. I think it's been a very good decision to change the way those appointments are made so it can focus on skill sets. And I do think that the paragraph the amendments that deal with conflicts of interest was absolutely essential. So often, Mr. Speaker, when you change the way in which a board is selected and you bring on board the executive skills, the governance skills and the executive skills you need to run what is going to be a $300 million project affecting 23 Category 1 heritage buildings. So often when you go out looking for those people, or people like that are they're appointed for a range of skill sets. Very often they have a strong business background, and very often you unfortunately have to deal with the issues of perceptions where those business people are seen to have vested interests in some way or another because of their because of their business background. They might be property developers in their private life, they might be real estate agents, I don't know. But so having strong clauses around dealing with conflicts of interest is very important, and I think this bill's done that. I want to also talk about why this bill has been as important and the deeper meaning. As a former mayor, this bill is important to New Zealand First for a number of reasons. One, having family, having lived in Canterbury myself for 30 odd years on and off, and having family who still reside there, I went down in '74, and one of the first things that struck me about Christchurch is that it was different to the Wairarapa. Really different. It was almost English. The culture, the architecture, the way in which people socialised, the way in which they even spoke in some parts of Christchurch in 1974 is very English. In fact, the first question I got asked when I went down there was not where I was from, it was what school I went to. And I found that quite unique. It was when I said Tararua College, they didn't have a donkey's idea as to where the hell Tararua College was. So, and I think that situation still exists today. But it's a very English town city, built on the back of those pioneers and those settlers who came in the first 4 ships. And the idea and the notion that every cultural and every heritage building, and particularly in a precinct where you have 23 Category 1s, would not be rebuilt, would not be restored, would be devastating to the community and the people of Christchurch. It is bad enough that the cathedral is in the state that is in and is most likely not going to be rebuilt. The other buildings that you can see, the churches throughout Christchurch that will not be rebuilt and are going to be replaced, have all taken with them something of the character of Christchurch. So it is that important. It is so good to hear that legislation like this is going through and that we will see these buildings fully restored again. There's also the wider issue of community. And the great thing about the Arts Centre is the way in which it provides for the culture, the community of the people of Christchurch and people who wish to visit and enjoy its precincts. That ability to socialise, to display art, to display culture, to display those things that are so Christchurch is something that would be difficult to replicate in a modern building built to modern designs and modern specifications. Being a mayor, I understand, and in fact it's probably one of the reasons why I riled against the national government's changes to the Local Government Act, where they removed the 4 well-beings. Being a mayor, we understand completely the importance of community, the importance that having a centre like this is to a town, is to a people, a place where they can go, where they can communicate, where they can display, show their arts, and show everything that is positive about them and different about them. That is probably the one area where, Mr. Speaker, where we will have conversations and discussions going forward, and those will be the debates around why it is so important that the Local Government Act has to have the 4 well-beings reinstated in it. And I actually think, Mr. Speaker, that this piece of legislation is in a quiet sort of way a message and an affirmation from Parliament that culture, the council's involvement, the government's involvement in providing cultural and social facilities and amenities is important, should be supported and should be maintained. I just think we should maybe reflect on that as we get into that debate where we will take different sides of the House going forward from here. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.